Welcome to the Gridiron Expert. We're going to be looking at Colorado State today. And Colorado State's coming off a breakthrough season. They nearly played for the Mountain West Championship game. And we got Kevin Lytle on the show today to discuss the 2025 Colorado State Rams. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to some football season.
Yeah, I've got college football in the brain 24/7, so I'm just as ready as you are. Well, before we get into the Rams, real quick, please tell our viewers where they can find your content.
Yeah, so I work for the Fort Collins, Coloradoan newspaper covering Colorado State. Coloradoan.com is our website, and I'm on social media at Kevin_Lytle, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, all the places you can find me there. So yeah, I've been covering the Rams for a while now.
That's great. Well, looking ahead to 2025, Colorado State returns at least their starting quarterback, and Braden Fowler Nicolosi had a pretty good freshman season, kind of a gunslinger, if you will, and improved in a lot of areas last year. We'll go ahead and start with him at the quarterback position. How is quarterback and overall the quarterback room looking for 2025?
Yeah, I think starting with Brain Fowler Nicolosi, BFN, as he's kind of affectionately known to a lot of folks, fans and everything. I think that's a great place because I think how he fares this season is going to have a big impact on how Colorado State does. Because, like you said, it's sort of been an interesting journey. When he first started, it was kind of a pretty true air raid, which is what Jay Norvell was known as. Yeah, gunslinging. I think everyone saw what was BFN's, I think, second career start technically when he started against Colorado in that crazy game in Boulder. Did a lot of good things there, and that season, big numbers, but some bad numbers too. A lot of interceptions. And then last season, the offense changed dramatically. We could probably do a whole other show on why that happened, but basically went a lot more run heavy, protect the ball, eat the clock, that type of thing. So BFN had to learn kind of a totally different style, how to be, game manager. I know that's kind of a slur to quarterbacks, but in some ways that's what it was: protect the ball, know the run checks, get into run checks when needed, and did that. And then coming into 2025, it's CSU is going to open up the offense a bit more, throw it a lot more, and Braden Fowler Nicolosi is about 2,700 yards shy of setting CSU's all-time passing record. So that's definitely an achievable number. So, if he can put up big numbers, but also, remove the turnovers of a couple of years ago, that changes, the potential trajectory of Colorado State's season.
And in regards to Colorado State potentially throwing the ball a lot more this fall, who are going to be some of those targets that they throw to? Because if I'm not mistaken, they lose their top three
Yeah.
receivers, at least in terms of production. Of course, the guy that ended up catching the most passes was Armani Winfield, I believe, and he returns.
Yeah, it's been a weird off season in the receiving core. So Torrey Horton didn't have the numbers last year because he missed most of the season injured, but he was far and away the top guy. Was just a Seattle Seahawks draft pick. So obviously not having him is going to be big. But on the flip side, they spent most of last season without him. So they kind of got into that adjustment earlier. Caleb Goody was a guy showing a lot of potential. He transferred out. Jamari Person was kind of growing into role. He transferred out. But like you say, Armani Winfield, he missed spring with a minor injury, but he should be one of the top guys. They have a couple. They were freshmen, now sophomores that they love, and Jordan Ross, who is a former 4-star recruit, had some flash moments last year. And the guy that kind of came out of nowhere last year, Tommy Maher, he was a walk on. He's on scholarship now, but kind of one of those speed demon. He's a genius route runner. The phrase you kind of keep hearing around Colorado State is always open. He's always open. Just one of those guys. And then the biggest question mark is Kojo Antwi. He's a former really high ranked recruit, was at Ohio State, but he suffered an injury while still at Ohio State because he stuck with the Buckeyes through the national championship run. He missed spring. They're hopeful he'll be back, when fall rolls around, but he could be a big piece of the puzzle. And then one of the most important that I haven't mentioned is tight end. The tight end room wasn't very productive last year, but they're really, really excited and hopeful about a pair of guys there with Rocky Beers and Jackson Warren.
I was about to say, so if you scroll through Colorado State Twitter right now,
Mm.
everyone's like crazy on Rocky beers. So the phrase, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, but actually you're drinking the Rocky beers here.
Yeah.
What's his ceiling like this year, you think?
Yeah, every year there are a couple camp winners, spring camp winners everyone gets excited about, and that's definitely Rocky Beers. He transferred in from Florida International. Resume was fine, he played some games, but didn't have crazy numbers, to suggest that he'd be a super pass catching demon. But he really pops. We're fortunate that we have a lot of access as media here, and I was able to watch all the spring practices, and he runs well. He's big, good catch radius, smooth. He has all the things you would look for in tight end. And then for those that don't know, Fort Collins is like a known for its craft beer scene. It's like a big brewery area. So a guy named Rocky Beers at Colorado State. I mean, they have the New Belgium porch at one of the end zones. So the idea of Rocky Beers scoring a touchdown and jumping into the New Belgium porch to celebrate. I mean, the marketing possibilities are endless on this one.
For sure. So, are we expecting the tight ends to become more of a feature, kind of like what they were in 2023, given the talent in the room? And going back to the receivers, I guess we'll kind of include this all in one with the pass catching
Yeah.
group here. The receivers, do you think they could be overall just as good as what they were last year, given that Torrey Horton was never fully healthy for a full year?
Yeah, I think CSU staff thinks that, yeah, you don't have probably the number one star like they would have with a healthy Torrey Horton, but it's going to be a deeper group, is their belief. And like you say, including the tight ends with that. Some of Norvell's best offenses at Nevada, instead of being built around one guy that has 110 catches for 1,100 yards, if you look at the stats, you'd have five guys in the 300 to 600 yard range. I think that's what they're envisioning this offense as. And yeah, tight ends will be a huge part of that. 2 years ago, Dallin Holker was incredible. He was in the Mackey conversation. Going back again to Norvell's time at Nevada, Cole Turner, who's in the NFL now, had some huge success. So they really love these, kind of tall, almost basketball player style tight ends. And so, yeah, I fully expect Beers and Warren to have big opportunities in this offense. And yeah, just across the board, a lot of guys getting catches rather than one guy dominating the catches.
Well, and last year, you talked about here at the beginning of our meeting how the running game was much improved
Yeah.
last year compared to what it was in 2023. Last year's top running back, at least in terms of production with Morrow, is moving on. And he's going to have a mini camp, I believe, with the New York Giants.
Yep.
But last year's second most used running back and Justin Marshall returns as well as Jalen Dupree. Is the running game still going to be as featured to the degree as what it was a year ago?
Yeah, they probably won't run as much overall as far as just straight up carries. I think it was 54% run to 46% pass last year. It won't be that much this season, but they love this running back room. Jay Norvell says it's the best he's had. Marshall can be pretty electric when he's healthy. Jalen Dupree, he's just a sophomore. He looks like a star in the making. They got Lloyd Avant from Tulsa, who looks like a guy. He'll be on kick returns. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. They really like that group. Matt Mummy, who's technically pass game coordinator, told me that he thinks they'll be actually involved in the passing game more than you've seen CSU running backs in the past as well. So yeah, that's a group that's probably going to be pretty versatile in what they do. And yeah, probably not as many overall carries as last year, but should be a pretty dangerous group because I think they all have pretty complementary of guys that can do different and help the offense.
And it looks like it's a very deep room. I mean, they go what, 4 or 5 deep here?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned those three. Marshall, Dupree, Avant are your top three. Then Keegan Hollis is a guy that's flashed. At times he's dealt with a lot of injuries, knee injuries. He's kind of a speed guy, but he seems to still have the speed. He had a good spring. So, yeah, I think a pretty easy four there. And then they have a couple of youngsters coming in too that they're excited about. So, yeah, they're going to, it's running back. You can be deep and then not very deep very quickly, but that's a position group they think they have a lot of quality in.
And then the offensive line. So Coach Jay Norvell has brought up multiple times throughout the spring how much he's liked the play of Aaron, is it Karras or Karras? And then
Aaron. Yep.
Karras. And then Tanner Morley as
Yeah.
well. I guess Trevin's gonna be playing center this year. And how do the others look up front?
Yes, I mean, that's going to be, it's super cliche to say, but how the offensive line performs is going to be big because they graduated three very veteran guys. Jacob Gardner was the center. He had started something like 50 some games in college. Drew Moss had a ton of starts. Savion Henderson had a ton of starts. So they're replacing a ton of experience and in some pretty, important positions. But yeah, Tanner Morley is probably the most talented, physically imposing offensive lineman that they have. He would look the part at AP4 as well. So yeah, they really like him. Aaron Karras just really solid and steady. Trevin Hiles probably the I don't want to say surprise of spring. That's maybe a knock on him, but you kind of wondered if they'd bring in someone to replace Gardner, but they just really like Trevin Hile. Mummy called him one of those overachiever type guys. He knows the offense really well and the checks they want to make. And that, obviously that coaching staff really values that. And so they're gonna lean on him pretty heavily. And then they have some other young guys that they really like. Christian Martin has grown a lot. Aitor Big A, they call him. He has a doozy of last name. I don't want to butcher. I don't want to offend him like that. But they really like how those guys have come
Oh,
on. So it's one of those a lot of unproven players, or not. A couple unproven players, but CSU really likes their potential. They've been in the system a couple years.
and then what's the depth like on the offensive line? Are they able to withstand some injuries?
I know right now, Coach Bill Best has said there's about 7, 8 guys that he feels good running out on Saturday. I think every O line coach would like to get that to about 10, but if you're at 8, you're okay. So they're in a fairly decent position. I think they're looking for depth guys right now in the portal. They added one, but I think overall they're feeling pretty decent about the depth.
So if the offensive line stays healthy, do you think this could be the best offense of the Jay Norvell era at Colorado State?
Oof, that's a good question. That one a couple years ago put up good numbers, but was very up and down. It had big moments and lull moments. I think the task for this group will be consistency. Um, I like the vision. I can see how the diversity of ways they can attack could be very good, but I also need kind of the proof in the pudding to see it. To see that BFN will protect the ball through 12 games. To see that the receivers are good enough that 4 or 5 of them can be good. When I don't know who your top dog is, and then obviously, like I said, the O line, I need to see it. They can protect the quarterback because Norvell's first season, the offense basically got tanked because they couldn't
Yeah.
protect the quarterback. So it has capability to be very good, but there are some significant questions too.
Well, moving over to the defensive side of the football, so there will be some new faces on the defense.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna have at least one, maybe two transfers that play significant time at each level of the
Yeah.
defense. Now, something else that Norvell said multiple times throughout the spring is that the secondary looks more athletic this year, and they're playing a little bit tighter coverage. So we'll actually start in the back end of the defense. What is your opinion on the ceiling of the secondary?
Yeah, it's a totally changed defense. They brought in Tyson Summers as defensive coordinator, fired Freddie Banks, and like you said, some of that tight coverage was part of that. Norvell continued to harp over the last year and a half about wanting tighter coverage, and Banks just didn't play that style, didn't want that style. So total changeover, and this defense gonna look so much different. Yeah, I definitely think it's more athletic. Brought in, let's see, CJ Blocker from Utah, Lamondre Joe, Missouri State. I'm missing. Jahari Rogers from SMU. All three of those guys will be big part at the cornerback position. Some transfers and young players at safety. But yeah, I think they expect to be a lot more aggressive at every level. And from the DB side of that, that's going to be in camp. We got to see a lot of press man coverage and aggressive, one-on-one play out there, which obviously, there's some high risk, high reward to that.
If you're looking at the secondary right now, there may not be a ton of household names that people outside of Colorado State would know. But what's someone that you think a lot of Mountain West viewers are going to know? Like by the time we hit the fourth or fifth weekend of college football, everybody, at least within the Mountain West, knows who this guy is.
Yeah, I think Jahari Rogers and CJ Blocker probably have maybe the best two chances. Rogers missed some time in spring with a fairly minor injury, so he should be good to go. But he has a pretty good resume coming over from SMU, and Blocker is a guy that has a lot of potential. He's another one of those, I believe former four-star recruits didn't get to see the field as much as he would have liked at Utah. So I think those are guys that if they perform at the level, CSU thinks they can, it kind of changes the trajectory of the defense.
And then, so at linebacker, it looks like they're going to have some transfers here.
Yeah.
Robert Edmondson, Jacob Ellis. How is this group looking right now?
Yeah, so Ellis is going to be he sort of one of your veteran. I don't know if he'll officially become a captain, but one of those leader type of guys that's played a lot of football at a lot of different levels. Coming from Iowa State, he looks really good. He's kind of just steady. And actually, one of the guys that'll be next to him, Owen Long, started to play late last year as a freshman, and he's just turning into a star. I heard my sources told me there was some pretty significant tampering going on late in this spring portal period from people trying to get him out to get him to go to a P4. So CSU it's one of those that it's not a true new recruit, but keeping him is
Yeah.
almost like landing a new player.
Yep.
So that's been a big one. So those guys should be really good. It'll be interesting to see how this defense unfolds because you have a couple guys like them playing your quote unquote traditional linebacker spots. But then you have some of these kind of edge rushers like a Jacquez Evans that are going to be more pass rushers than linebackers. But I think that from what it was last year, and you have some interesting mix of older guys and younger guys.
Yeah, discussing Owen Long there when you're saying how you have to re-recruit. It's amazing this era of college football. You might be able to get these guys out of high school, but can you keep them? Can you retain the talent? So Colorado State seems very excited that they kept Owen Long. So he might be one of the other breakthrough players potentially for this defense this fall.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely a name to keep an eye on. They are really excited about him. Like I say, he kind of came on middle late last season, started playing a lot. And in this defense, I think he's going to have a chance to put up some pretty significant tackle numbers.
When you look towards the defensive front, the last couple of years, Colorado State has had some pretty good edge rushers. Do you think that they can have someone step up and be that difference maker up front for 2025?
Yeah, it's probably going to look a little different in the past. Like I said, the last gosh for a while now, they've been a four-man front, with sort of your traditional defensive end coming off the edge, and they've had some good ones. This is more it's a multiple defense, but a lot of times there'll be three down linemen, then some kind of stand up edge rushers. They're going to come with a lot of different looks, a lot of different blitzes. So in that way, I almost wonder if sack numbers will be kind of divided amongst a lot of people. I think the one that will have a lot. I briefly mentioned him is Jacquez Evans, nicknamed Donut, which is a pretty awesome nickname. That's what fans will know him as Donut. That's what I don't think I've heard since he came in a single player or coach on the roster call him by his name. They call him Donut, so that
So,
one
how
sticks.
did he get that name?
I guess it's from childhood, basically at one of those random happenings where he's having a donut at or after practice, and someone called him at, and it is just stuck and gone from team to team to team. But he seems to like it, which is good because not everyone's childhood nickname is one they're fond of. But yeah, he's a fun guy, a big character. He played under Tyson Summers a few years ago at Western Kentucky, so he's one of the guys that actually knows this defensive system too. But he has potential to have a lot of sacks.
So it sounds like he's going to be someone that you don't want to mess with. We'll
There it is.
Yeah, sorry, it had to be punny at some point. When you look at the interior of the defensive line, do you think that this has a chance to be the best interior defensive line in the Norvell era at Colorado State?
They probably need a little bit more depth. Last year and the year before, they had some pretty good interior DL. I think they like their starting D line group. Mukinde Wakalanji's played a lot of games. Andrew Lorich has come on. Jernias Tafia. They like that group and a couple of the reserves. I think they just need a little bit more depth. Again, preaching to the choir every every I think defensive staff wants a little bit more beef up front, but they like it and think it's talented, just a little thin as far as numbers.
So overall, this Colorado State defense this year, they should be much more aggressive and potentially better in the turnover differential because I know we
Yep.
discussed BFN can be he'll throw some picks every once in a while, but the defense on top of being more aggressive this year, I guess we could look at Colorado State to have better turnover luck this year.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the with this style, Colorado State should be, and I'm sure is aiming to be top three in the league in both sacks and turnovers forced. And if they do that, if you're there in both of those, it really, again, boosts the possibilities of what the season can be. Because obviously, more turnovers forced means more chances for the offense. More chances for the offense, great problem. We all understand the rolling theory on that one. So if it's executed well, that's the goal. Now, obviously, if you're a high pressure system and you don't get home and you have a bunch of guys on islands 1-on-1, that's dangerous too. So it's a bit of a high risk, high reward plan. But Tyson Summers' defenses over the last few years have created a lot of turnovers. So that's absolutely a huge number to keep an eye on. They should be in the 20 plus, maybe upper 20s range.
Wow. And that would obviously help with the ceiling of the team for
Yeah.
this fall. Something else, though, that helps oftentimes with the ceiling is having good special teams to win in close games. And actually, Colorado State just picked up a transfer, I believe, from Baylor. He was their starting kicker last year. I think was he picked up earlier today or late yesterday? Could you go
Yep.
into the depths of the special teams here?
Yeah, so I mean that's very accurate that special teams have been big. Tommy Perry's a special teams coordinator. Not every team has a special teams coordinator, which Jay Norvell finds baffling. Tommy Perry finds baffling. Obviously, he's a little biased on that one, but they feel it's an underutilized area in a team. CSU under Norvell has generally been quite good, but that's another. They've had big turnover. Torrey Horton was the main punt returner the last few years. Obviously, he's gone. Uh, they've had some good kick returners who graduated as well. Their punter and kicker from last year are gone. And frankly, kicking was pretty poor in spring, and it kind of jumped out as one that they needed to address. And sure enough, Isaiah Hankins from Baylor, who he's 74% last year, really good numbers, a long of 51, career long of 54, 50 of 51 on PAT. So all the reliability things that you look for in a kicker, he has been at Baylor. So that's on paper, that sure looks like a really good pickup to me for Colorado State. And it really fills a significant hole. I know, no one really wants to talk about the kicker unless they do something great or something terrible, but he swings the ledger over toward talk about the kicker because of good things rather than bad things.
Certainly a positive note here for the Rams for 2025. Kevin, really good job. One last question here. When you look at the Rams and overall their different position groups this year, outside of quarterback, what position group from first to second string do you think could have the biggest drop off? And it's a position group where it's like, we got to stay healthy there.
That's a good question. Either O line or D line. I'm gonna say D line. I think the O line has a little bit more depth right now, so I'm gonna say defensive line. If they were to have some issues up there, it could go south because, like I say, they're a little thin. Now, again, we're talking on May 7th when recruiting is still ongoing. I know they have some big fellas coming for visits, so that could change between now and August 30th when they play. Right now, that's maybe the biggest question mark, just depth wise, and how many bodies deep they can go.
And here's the good thing if you're Colorado State, and this also refers to almost every G5 team. I've done a few of these previews now, and the biggest question mark for almost every G5 team in terms of their depth is up front. And almost every single interview that I've had on the channel has said, we got to stay healthy up front.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that it's Colorado State is not alone there, and it's the world that we live in now. It's hard to keep your backups. I mean, they want to go transfer and play, and so I'm not here to blame the player.
I
It's like the
I
system.
think especially when you're looking at size. I mean, I think some of those power fours, they'll look through a roster and be like, well, that kid may not be doing anything right now, but they've got the size, so we'll teach them. So let's go throw a bag at them and
Yep.
get them in. So yeah, I think again, it's kind of cliche and universal, but also true. Yeah, the especially at the G5 level, you can never find enough big guys.
So true. Well, Kevin, again, really good job today. One last time here, could you tell our viewers again where they can find your content?
Yeah, I'm at Kevin _Lytle, Lytle, on social media, and ColoradoWin.com is our website for all the stories if you want to read up on Colorado State football.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to watching the Rams in 2025, and the Mountain West should be a really fun league to see who can ultimately challenge maybe the Boise State Broncos. So we'll see how it goes. And have a good one, Kevin, and we'll look to have you on the channel again next year.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.